Day edition. And, wow, isn't it fun to just watch all of these lies and fabrications just come apart at the seams? It's just amazing. We had a little piece from Arc Knight James O'Keefe we're going to roll for you in just a minute as yet another operative, one Van Jones. He's a big-time commentator there at CNN. Well, he uncovered his own, well, you'll find out. It's ridiculous. Seriously, support James O'Keefe. ProjectVeritas.com. He, like Caravan to Midnight and his organization, are totally donation-supported, member-supported. We're member-supported. He's donation-supported. And he does just some of the best work out there, if not the best work out there. I think it's just astounding. Now, what's all this about the United Nations? United Nations. You want to hear a good one? This is from Teddy Stick. Yes, Teddy Stick. Speak softly and carry a big stick. You know, the Ray Donovan edition baseball bat. That's my favorite. United Nations targets Trump, demanding civil liberties of jihadis be protected. So here's the usual worm-looking dude, Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein. Pictured here, acts as though Trump protecting the U.S. from terrorism is a bad thing. But then again, with a name like Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein, what would we really expect? This was posted by Sam Diganji. The United Nations human rights officials have openly sided with evil. They have issued what Pamela Geller calls a scathing condemnation of President Donald Trump because the noble leader is wrongfully infringing upon the civil rights of ISIS jihadists. The very terrorists who have slaughtered thousands. Over the course of Ramadan, almost 1,300 people have been, like, just viciously murdered. It would have been more humane to run them through a brush chipper, you know, like right after dinner. Going back to the article, for one thing, Trump supports waterboarding. Admittedly, this is a slippery slope because one can never be sure that they actually have the right person. Putting an innocent man through such an ordeal could make him a terrorist, in theory. But the UN is simply using this as an excuse to condemn Mr. Trump. Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein showed his opposition to the president for this, and even British Prime Minister Theresa May for saying she would alter human rights laws if they impeded security operations. Again, while this needs to be done with forethought, May leads a nation that has seen Islamic terror totally devastate the morale of the country, and at some point stronger means are needed against a few to save the lives of many. But Hussein says, if other leaders start to follow the same rhetorical course, undermining the UN Convention Against Torture with their words, the practice of torture is likely to broaden, and that would be fatal. Well, I don't know what's so fatal about it, or even potentially fatal about it, but whatever you say, Zaid. If he's trying to say that torture breeds torture, meaning that our captured warriors can expect treatment similar to what's done to theirs, that's nonsense. Daesh terrorists and groups aligned with those ideologies have abused all people captured long before Trump wanted to simply dunk their heads under the water. Nobody dies. I mean, I tried it. I did. I got to tell you, it really, really sucks. But you don't drown. You think you're drowning. Your body thinks you're drowning, but you're not. I mean, in a way, you're sort of drowning, but not really. You're going to cough some water out and blow some out through your nose. And if you live in this part of the world, that's not necessarily a bad thing, since your nose is stuffed with, well, spores, molds, pollen, stuff like that on a continual basis, which is how you wind up with Georgie Soros eyes. That's a good say. I just got an idea for a song. Betty Davis eyes, about Georgie Soros eyes. So anyway, the fact is, Americans have been tortured by Islamists at least as far back as Gulf War I, when Saddam Hussein beat out bravest of them all and paraded them on TV when done. Beat our bravest. It says beat out bravest. Sorry, it's cold read. What are we to do when confronted with someone who has insight into where the next daycare center bombing or shopping mall attack is going to happen? Should we just make them tea and hope they confess the information? These are hard questions. So it would be a lot easier to reach answers if the UN would stop being so politically correct and simply admit the West is acting like this because a large number of Muslims are blowing up innocent people for Allah. And we're running out of options. That, sadly, is the cold, hard truth. Well, what do we need the United Nations for anyway? You know, we're going to speak with Alex Newman. He was at the Red Pill Expo. He's a really bright young man. And he writes for The New American. He writes for WND. He's been all over the world. I mean, he's fluent in several languages and adequate in many others. And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's somewhere between his mid-20s and his mid-30s. He's one of those guys that looks like he could be any age. I'm going to get into that with him when we get started here. But one of the things I'm going to discuss with him is, what do we need this United Nations bunch of morons for anyway? Seriously. Everywhere they go, there are more problems than before they got there. I mean, by double and triple. It's outrageous. We'll get into it with him. You'll find out. And so will I. All right, now. Oh, boy. Sesame Street's Elmo has been weaponized to attack Trump's travel ban. Who's doing it? CNN, the communist news network. The war with the president's getting personal. Network staffers fired amid worries of AT&T takeover. Vice retracts articles about the president. Mr. Trump is slamming the New York Times. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. In the meantime, the FBI has decided to interview people on both coasts after work. They went to their homes to ask about the company they work for, Kaspersky. Remember back in the old days when they were talking about the Olympics being, is it Nagano or Nagano? I don't know. What do you think? I like Nagano. Well, they were calling it Kaspersky. No, Kaspersky. Russian company. So you got former senior U.S. intelligence officials saying, I wouldn't put any of their stuff on my laptop. Well, okay, get McAfee then. We like him. John McAfee, the guy who runs into a dude that's got he's riding his bicycle across America. Got an American flag on it. He comes on, he came on the Caravan at midnight, talked to us for a minute. It's like John just tells him, hey, come on over to the house. And comes on the program here. McAfee, he's such a trib. He's crunching his tacos and drinking beer and all this. Is like, you just have to admire his uninhibited nature, you know. NATO says cyber attacks a call to arms. But you know what? I've got another good one for you. I want to run this past you. This is from, you know him, you love him, Charlie Smith of Soft War. You want to talk about encryption for just a second? Let's talk about it. He puts out a newsletter, and you should get it. And this article is entitled "The Dark Art of Encryption." Now, all this stuff going back and forth about the Russians. There's nothing there. Gosh, this stuff is just all over the place. It's incredible. Let me just jump over here, and then we'll get to Charlie. Susan Rice, you remember her? Kind of a moron. She is suggesting that race and gender bias is linked to unmasking backlash.
Velasquez mufflers and brakes. His convenient.
I don't know what this is. It's just an errand button. The thing is, how have we allowed so many lowbrow people to infiltrate all areas of government, the security services? I mean, it sounds to me like that the evil banksters are the only ones that really have their stuff together. At least they've been able to pull it off and manage to avoid having the Fed audited and many, many other things. I mean, they've been getting away with this stuff for a long time. So clearly, somehow money has played a key role in their IQ being raised to the point where at least they can keep their activities somewhat concealed. But when you had Susan Rice, the Obama National Security Advisor, formerly under fire over her alleged involvement in the unmasking of Trump associates during the 2016 presidential election, suggesting in a fresh interview that race and gender might be playing a role in the scrutiny she's faced. In an interview with journalist Michael Tomasky for New York Magazine, Rice reportedly questioned the criticism she's faced dating back to the Benghazi controversy. Yes, it's race and gender bias that's what's behind any inquiries we might make about the Benghazi debacle. Why me? Why not Jay Carney, for example, who was then our press secretary, who stood up more, she asked. What an idiot. Tomasky noted in the piece that Carney isn't an African-American woman, of course, and apparently asked Rice whether that's the key factor. Rice, in response, left the door open. I don't know. I do not leap to the simple explanation that it's only about race and gender. I'm trying to keep my theories to myself until I'm ready to come out with them. It's not because I don't have any. But Rice mentioned other prominent female figures like Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice, who faced ad hominem attacks, suggesting a correlation. Asked about the comments, a Republican Capitol Hill source pushed back. This is screaming out for attention. She's saying, I don't know why they all started picking on me to begin with. Well, that's because you're incompetent, Susan. And you're not very good at covering your trail. That's why. Because you were so eaten up with your ego at working under Obama, the ultimate narcissistic egotist, and a total disaster for the country, I might add, that you just thought you were Teflon coated, honey. That's what happened. You screwed up, in short. That's why. As to the suggestion of race and gender being a factor, the source countered, then why would there be a subpoena for a white male? That was a reference to the fact that Rice is not only the focus of the congressional probe into unmasking. Investigators have issued subpoenas in 3 different agencies, NSA, CIA, and FBI. Those subpoenas have asked for unmasking information related to 3 individuals, former CIA Director John Brennan, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power, and Rice. She's not the only focus of congressional frustration either. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, had a tense exchange with a top intelligence community lawyer at a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on Tuesday, where he complained he still doesn't have an answer on whether his communications have been monitored. He asked, am I ever going to get the response in my lifetime? Rice told Judy Woodruff on PBS on March 22 that she knew nothing about the unmasking of Trump associates. But weeks later on MSNBC, she admitted she sometimes sought out the identities of Trump associates who communicated with foreigners, a request known as unmasking in the intelligence community. But I leaked nothing to nobody, Rice told MSNBC. Where did these people come from? Why are they there? Absolutely unbelievable. It really is. Did you hear about this fine that EU whipped on Google? Wow. $2.7 billion penalty on Google after a 7-year investigation into whether the company was promoting its own comparison shopping tool over those of its competitors in search results. Quote, the EU competition policy chief, Margrethe Vestager, what Google has done is illegal under EU antitrust rules. It denied other companies the chance to compete on the merits and to innovate. And most importantly, it denied European consumers a genuine choice of services and the full benefits of innovation. So that will be a fee of $2.7 billion for you, Google. Well, okay. Now then. This is from Heat Street. 1980 Gore. Get it? A playoff in 1984. People are throwing up, fainting, and screaming at George Orwell play on Broadway. 1984 was never going to have a breezy rom-com vibe on Broadway. I suppose that's romantic comedy. And this is an article by Tom Teodorczyk. But the adaptation of George Orwell's 1949 dystopian classic, which opened late last week in New York, is generating queasy responses from some audience members. Some of them have been throwing up, fainting, and screaming at the play's extreme torture scenes perpetrated by the totalitarian regime dedicated to suppressing critical dissent. A scene in the show where rebel Winston Smith is terrorized in a wire cage that contains 2 large rats is causing special distress. No cracks on who the rats might be. Security guards are now positioned throughout the entire Hudson Theater. Security guards. And just before opening night, the production began barring anyone under 13 years of age from attending. Now the star, Olivia Wilde, who plays Winston's fellow resistance member Julia, told Heat Street at the opening, 1984 contains some anxiety. And if people are already on edge, it intensifies that. This is such a rare, immersive experience for the audience that it's causing this kind of reaction. Couldn't be just bad acting, I suppose, but anyway. She added, we're hopefully allowing people to contextualize everything they are experiencing every day. There's a lot of rage, fear, and confusion, and sometimes art is the way we find perspective during these times. It feels intense because I know the audience is consuming it from a very specific state of mind. Well, maybe what they're throwing up about is the realization of the correlations between American life today and a novel written at the end of the 4th decade of the 20th century. It could be that they're just connecting the dots in their minds. They're contextualizing things to the point where they're screaming and throwing up. It's just a guess, but that's what I'm thinking. Now, in fake news, I repeat, Arc Knight James O'Keefe has struck again. Seriously, support James O'Keefe. We need more like him. Bright guy, and his investigators are brilliant, and it's just excellent. So here we go. CNN commentator Van Jones called the Russia story, well, you're going to hear, in the second CNN-related undercover video released by Project Veritas this week. Wait till you hear this. Let's roll it.
Mainstream media with part 2 on CNN. Fake news. The Russia story. You're about to see one of CNN's most prominent left-leaning political commentators in total agreement with President Trump. We think this might be the first time this has ever happened. Maybe it's because he didn't realize he was going to be on television. And as Chris Cuomo has said, sometimes that's when you're the most honest.
Hey, man. We met in Palm Springs a few years back.
Good to see you, man. You good?
Yeah. How you been? What are you doing?
Good.
What do you think's going to happen this week? I mean, with the whole Russia thing.
The Russia thing is just a big nothing burger.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think that?
There's nothing there you can do. The Russia thing is just a big nothing burger.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think that?
There's nothing there you can do.
Yesterday, you met supervising producer John Bonifield.
Then why is CNN constantly like Russia this, Russia that?
Because it's ratings.
Because it's ratings?
Our ratings are incredible right now.
But honestly, you think the whole Russia shit is just like bullshit?
Could be bullshit. I mean, it's mostly bullshit right now. Like, we don't have any big giant proof. But
CNN's response, quote, CNN stands by our medical producer John Bonifield. Diversity of personal opinion is what makes CNN strong. We welcome it and embrace it. Unquote. Good. Because Bonifield says he was not alone in his cynicism for the news business.
This is good. Watch
Van
this.
Jones agrees with him that the Russia story is bold.
So I love the news business, but
I find it so
I'm
fascinating.
very cynical about it. At the same time, so are most of my colleagues.
Yeah, it's like
I'm not alone.
The Russia thing is just a big nothing burger.
Really?
The organization.
So how about that? They're cynical, and many of his colleagues are too. So, you know, in the end, you know, I can sit here, and I do, say more on this and more on that. But in the end, these are just people. And the fact is, there is a false sense of security that they are imbued with. When they go home, I'm pretty sure they think about what they've done. But I wonder if they've thought it all the way through. Everybody needs a J-O-B. Everybody knows that, like John Lennon saying. Everybody got to have a home. You got to have a little box that you go home to, but once you get away from your workplace and your work, and you have that alone time, how many of these people who are pushing this nonsensical propaganda out there that is clearly to be seen for what it is, how many of those people really have a conscience? Well, it's obvious that that last guy that was on there did, Van Jones. He's got a job, he's got a great-looking suit, he's got the power, he's got the recognition, he has a certain degree of celebrity, and he knows it's a big nothing burger. This whole Russia thing is a big nothing burger. They don't have any proof of anything, but they just keep trying to push it because they've got to stop Trump, stop Trump. Stop Trump from what? You've heard all these talking points before, and I don't even like to identify them as such, but you've heard this before. All he's trying to do is secure the border so we actually know, get an idea of who's coming in and out of the country. All he's trying to do is bring back manufacturing jobs to the United States and get them away from China. They don't like us. They're not our friends. They don't like Christians. They routinely execute their own citizens for nothing. You can get executed just for going to a Christian church. North Korea, you and your family will go to a work camp, and you will not be leaving that work camp. You will die in that work camp just for possessing a Bible. So I've asked this question before. I asked it on Coast to Coast AM, and I'm pretty sure they didn't like it being asked, but why is it all right for us to go to the Olympics and everybody enter the arena underneath a great big picture of Mao Zedong, the most murderous communist dictator ever, surpassing by far even Joseph Stalin, who is clearly insane. Criminally insane. You take a criminally insane person and put him in a position of power in government, and you got a problem. Maybe you're just not Soviet enough. Maybe you're just not communist enough. You know, during that one-child policy, if they found that a couple had an extra baby, they would take that baby away, take it out to the front yard, and bash its brains out. You ever seen this thing where they go ahead and they actually have a contest? Who is the most beautiful woman shot in the back of the head when execution day comes in China for convicted drug smugglers or drug dealers? And you know, the person that this, I mean, it's like, it's sad, and it does something weird inside when you see, you know, they're all sitting around and they're being treated very nicely by some other women sitting around that are, you know, working for the man, so to speak, and they're fed and all that, and then they just go out, get on their knees, and this chinky dude just comes up and pops them in the back of the head. Bye-bye. No big, long appeals process. No sitting on death row for 20 years. No, none of that. And then finally you go to the death chamber where the state kills you. No. Just over there in the grass is fine. Just pop, we're done. What is it, about 20 cents a round, something? Probably cheaper than that in China. And it really makes you wonder after a while, wait a minute. Now, who runs this planet? Go to your Bible and it tells you who runs the planet. It's got to be Satan, otherwise I don't think this would be happening. Just brutal civilizations. But we're going to do business with them because you know what? It's good for our bottom line. It's insane. Anybody who thinks that the love of money is not the root of all evil, you need to rethink that, because it is. It really is, and it's really, really sad. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, let's see. Ugh. Stephen Hawking and the IQ pill. Double your IQ by taking this pill. No. Back to this thing that Charlie Smith wrote. And you're going, no, wait a minute, you're kind of all over the place. No. All these roads lead to Rome, if you will. That's not code. That's not Illuminati, you know, like eyeballs. It's not code. It's just an expression, nothing more. This is what Charlie writes. The current crisis of encryption is in part due to a lack of intelligence. The governments of the UK and Australia are talking about bans, regulations, requirements, and other legal structures to address the perceived problem of going dark. The problem inside the nutshells that are the May and Turnbull governments is that encryption allows, evildoer name, fill in the blank here, to communicate where the legal authorities cannot monitor them. I'm surprised the United Nations hasn't jumped into this, saying, no, encryption is very important so that we can protect the civil rights and the human rights of even potential jihadis. But they haven't because they're useless. Due to a lack of intelligence, the May and Turnbull governments proposed to find some way to regulate encryption. When I mention lack of intelligence, I'm not making reference to the collection of information of military and political value. I am using intelligence in the traditional form of the ability to acquire and apply knowledge. To those who have been placed, elected, or have seized power, understanding the technology is less important than trying to wrestle with its consequences. Thus, for argument's sake, I will try to keep this simple for the simple-minded leadership. If the value 1 represents your message, and the value 4 represents the secret code key, then 1 plus 4 will give you the coded message of 5. To decode the secret message, simply apply the reverse by subtracting the secret code key 4 from the secret message 5, and you obtain the original message 1. The question for the political and ruling caste is, exactly how are you going to regulate that? The obvious answer is, you can't. Thus, the dilemma the ruling elite have found, in order to stop the evildoer from using encryption, you must ban math and pray the bad guys have not already graduated from elementary school. It would seem that to ban encryption is a futile effort. However, that does not seem to stop the clueless political caste from trying. It's almost like Galileo fighting the Pope. Yes, I understand the church is all-powerful and can cut my head off, but that still doesn't stop the earth from revolving around the sun. Thus, the ruling caste has focused their bans toward the so-called providers, such as WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, and others. The problem with this selected approach is that all you have to do to stop the general public from having the advantages of encryption, while the evildoers will simply cook up their own, something that ISIS and Al-Qaeda have already done. What does the May and Turnbull governments get out of this fruitless endeavor? Not much. Other than use of the boogeyman technology as a way of scooping up some of the ignorant voters into thinking they are safe until the next attack. Simply put, they are playing on the technophobia of the public, which is often mirrored in their own technophobia at failing to understand what can be explained with a first-grade math problem. In fact, even the more totalitarian-minded regimes in Moscow and Beijing are rapidly growing frustrated at their inability to regulate math. It would seem that the general public in all nations are better served if the master wasn't always clued in on everything that's said behind their backs. So far, the only government on earth which seems capable of addressing the problem is North Korea, where all users are registered and all computers are closely monitored. Therein lies part 2 of the problem of encryption. The academic and information security communities have long kept the encryption magic in a special box, away from the public. It is this form of wizard artful dodging, that has created the clueless elite and even more clueless users. Many in both technical communities act like elite snobs of their own caste, refusing to use any encryption that has not been verified by open source code. This is ironic, since they demand the encryption code to be open and free for all to use or steal, while the computer operating system's code they are designed to run on remains proprietary and a very closely guarded secret. It's similar to demanding to know the exact molecular makeup of the ketchup for your 12-course dinner, which is being prepared by a secret team of chefs using secret ingredients and classified cooking methods. Charlie is so smart, he's a little bit hard to track with sometimes, but the way he writes, I think, is quite good. Shall I continue? Okay. The other part revolves around the geek fad syndrome of wizards. The latest fancy of super-duper code systems has often resulted in getting people burned. The community went gaga over the dual elliptical curve encryption security and even allowed the U.S. government to turn it into a standard, little knowing that the NSA had already broken the coding system. Thus, the fad syndrome laid the foundation for a whole generation of obsolete and vulnerable hardware and software. All this brings us back to the heart of the 12-course meal, your computer operating system. The source code to your operating system, with a few exceptions, is not available, and for all practical purposes remains a black box. This box has been hacked 12 times over since last Sunday. Many of the hacks are done by the very same intelligence agencies, now demanding the easy but useless solution of banning encryption. Unfortunately, these boxes are now hooking up to all sorts of things like airplanes, the power grid, water plants, sewage facilities, the stock market, cars, and even the lowly toaster. They can also hook up to things like nuclear power plants and major weapon systems like missiles, bombers, and aircraft carriers. The recent CIA hacks put on for display by WikiLeaks are a clear demonstration that the digital world we have built is only as safe as the boxes and their security systems. The only chance we have is to encrypt as much as possible, or we are doomed. The only way to survive in the future may be to go dark. Bruce Schneier said, "A dark world where nuclear power plants can't be hacked is safer than a bright world in which they can." Kudos to Charles Smith. He is, I repeat, a brilliant guy, and you should avail yourself of some of his products, which are available at softwar.net. Not software, leave off the E, softwar, all right? All right, good. Well, I think that about does it for now. There's a lot more, but some of it is just stupid. It's too stupid. It's a waste of your time. It's kind of no resolution, just sort of something happened, but we're not really sure what it is. We have something to tell you, but we're not really sure what it is. Well, when we're sure of something that we want to tell you, we do. So that's kind of how that is. And may I just say, if you're watching this on YouTube, I do this every program. I invite you to become a member of Caravan to Midnight. We have outstanding guests, best in the world. Some people say the interviews are the best in the world, the best out there. There are many other outlets that are offering very, very good product and content. But at Caravan to Midnight, we specialize in analyzing things from what I would like to think is a pretty unique perspective. Want to know what that perspective is? I'll tell you, because we're open source here. From the perspective of, I don't care where the chips fall. I don't care. I don't care if it hurts some people's feelings. I got an email the other day from a guy who said, "You really give these transgender," I'm paraphrasing, but here's the message. "You really give the transgender people a bad time. Anytime I hear you mock a man for painting his toenails, it just sends a chill through me." I don't care, man. I really don't. If I come on this program in my bra and panties just because I feel like a woman today, I suspect that's going to get a pretty strange response from the audience. In fact, they may decide that I've gone insane and decide that they're not going to be members of Caravan to Midnight anymore. I don't care what you do. I really don't. I don't care if you run around your house in red Hitler underwear. I don't care if you paint your toenails. I don't care if you wear a bra. I don't care. I don't care if you have your sex organs cut off and replaced with somebody else's sex organs from some donor clinic somewhere. I don't care. What I do care about is that when the abnormal component of human society insists, all the way up to the violent level, like physical violence, that the rest of the civilization be pulled down to their level. Perversion has always existed. Homosexuality has been around since the beginning of time. Is that supposed to be normal? If the whole world turned gay, what? I guess the only reason to, it would be all that in vitro fertilization stuff. just so we can make more humans that we can turn toward perversity. And there is nothing in any scripture from any religion that states this is okay, that this is normal. So, you hate gays. No, I don't. I was a theater major. There are gay people all over the place. Many of them were friends. Do I go to the gay bars with them? Well, certainly not. It's not my thing. There's a difference between the sin and the sinner. Big difference. You can love the sinner and hate the sin, and you're good. But when you get to a point where you love the sin, and now you got to go look for some sinners, that's a problem. That's mental illness, and worse, it's spiritual illness. And that's where I come up on these things. It's all right, I don't care what you do. Live your life the way you want to. Just don't impose your lifestyle on the rest of civilization. There is this thing called modesty. There is this thing called privacy. We've lost a lot of it, but we can regain it. Many things are being recovered now that have been lost to us for a while. First and foremost, our dignity. There is such a thing as dignity, and it is among the most valuable of the human components. Dignity, responsibility, duty, altruism, empathy. Occasionally we'll find sympathy with someone or something. Sympathy, a mechanism for getting along. Mutual sympathy. Empathy is just feeling for people who are downtrodden, disadvantaged, not as smart, can't run as fast or jump as high. And all the while there's this push for equality, we're all equal. Well, no, we're not. Some think faster and better than others. Some jump and run faster and higher than others. Nobody equal, except in the eyes of God. That's it. And that's a spiritual thing. Has nothing to do with what you're able to do here on planet Earth. That's secondary. Are we clear on this? Okay, good. I'll tell you what then, in that case, let's have a beautiful musical interlude, and then let's get on with Alex Newman. You're going to like hearing from him. He was, I repeat, he was at the Red Pill Expo, a lot of brilliant speakers there. And I think you're going to enjoy it, so stand by. Oh, and one last thing. There's a link down there to the Caravan to Midnight website, caravantomidnight.com. It would be great if you became a member. We are totally member supported. Truly, no corporate influence. We are not part of mainstream, or rather, Ministry of Smoke and Mirrors. We're not. And unlike those people, the moment we discover we've made a mistake at something, we come out and tell you, even if you didn't notice it. We don't wait to get caught and then try and backtrack out of it. That just makes you look worse. It really does. If you make a mistake, if you screwed up something, just say so. There is nothing that will unnerve an employer or anybody else than to say, a screw-up has been committed, and I did it. I will do whatever you want me to do to fix this, including go away. Yeah, but okay, well, just don't let it happen again. Boss, I won't. Okay, get out of here. And that's the end of it. But if you try and lie your way out of it, and you have to tell enough lies, before long, you're going to come to the conclusion that maybe you better stop lying because you can't remember what you told people. So that's why we shoot straight all the time. We tell the truth as we see it, and if we make a mistake, we just own it and confess. All right. Did I mention join us?